Okay, so let's look at how we actually use this. They will ask you to evaluate your trig ratios for certain angles. So the first example there is the sine of 3 pi over 4. Here's how you handle that. Sine is the y coordinate. So I would write that. I would write y. 3 pi over 4 is the angle. So on your unit circle, you are going to find where 3 pi over 4 is, and the sine is the y coordinate. So the answer to this is the square root of 2 over 2. The sine of 3 pi over 4 is equal to the square root of 2 over 2. Now, your calculator, absolutely, you can type this into your calculator. First of all, make sure you are in radian mode, because 3 pi over 4 is a radian angle. 3 pi over 4 is a radian measure. Sine of 3 pi over 4. Now, here's the downside. That doesn't say square root 2 over 2, does it? Nope. Okay, your calculator is not going to give you square roots in a fraction, but if it's multiple choice, you should be able to compare decimal values. The square root of 2 over 2 is equal to that decimal of 0.707, whatever after that. Okay, so either you're going to have a unit circle in front of you, and you just have to know what the x and the y coordinates match to, or you're going to have multiple choice answer choices, so you can plug it in your calculator and just compare decimal values. Okay, let's look at another example. B, cosine of pi over 3. So cosine is x. So I'm going to find pi over 3. Pi over 3 is here in the first quadrant. I just need the x coordinate. So this is equal to 1/2. Now, obviously, you would get, it wouldn't be that big of a deal if you put that one into the calculator. It would tell you 0.5. Y'all know that 0.5 is 1/2. So that one's not a big deal. But when it's square root 2 over 2, when it's square root 3 over 2, that's where you have to know a little bit more. All right, cosine of 90. So still dealing with the x coordinate. 90 degrees is right here. The x coordinate at 90 degrees is 0. The cosine of 90 degrees is equal to 0. All right, sine of 180. Sine is the y coordinate. 180 is here on the negative x-axis. The y coordinate is 0. So notice, cosine of 90 and sine of 180 have the same value. That happens sometimes. There's a lot of repetition in the unit circle. Let's do a few more. Sine of 7 pi over 6. Sine is the y coordinate. 7 pi over 6 is in the third quadrant. Now, I don't expect you to find the angles that quickly. I've been doing the unit circle for a really, really long time, so I know where these angles are. So don't be intimidated by the speed at which I find these angles. The y coordinate there is negative 1/2. Cosine of 7 pi over 4. Cosine is the x. I encourage you, write that x and y every time, just to continue to ingrain in your memory that sine is y, cosine is x. 7 pi over 4 is in the fourth quadrant. We need the x coordinate, so it is positive square root 2 over 2. And then one more, sine of 215. Sine is the y. When we look at the unit circle, I see 210 and I see 225. 215 is obviously right in between those, but it's not on the unit circle. So this is the only time that decimal answers are okay for this. If it is not on the unit circle, then you use the calculator. Now, I'm pretty sure I just changed mine to radian mode a minute ago to do that one, so I need to go back to my mode and change it to degrees, because this angle is in degrees. And type in the sine of 215, and that is negative 0.574. That is the only time decimal values are allowed, is when the angle is not on the unit circle. You have to use your calculator. But make sure it makes sense. 215 would be right here. So in this quadrant, the y coordinates are negative. So we got a negative value. So that does make sense. Okay. Any questions about using the unit circle to evaluate? Got it? Easy peasy. All right. Another kind of question they may ask you is to find the angle. So they give you the answer, they want to know the angle. So let's look at this one. Find the angle in radians that corresponds to the given point on the unit circle. So positive square root 2 over 2, negative square root 2 over 2. So we got a positive x and a negative y. That is here in the fourth quadrant. There's that coordinate. Its angle in radians is 7 pi over 4. That is all that question is asking you to do. Find the coordinate, give me the angle. Positive square root 3 over 2, 1/2. Positive x, positive y, that's first quadrant. There's that coordinate. I want the angle in radians. So the correct answer here is pi over 6. Okay. One more twist on this question. Identify all angles in radians and degrees where the cosine is equal to 1/2. So cosine is the x coordinate. So we're looking for an x of positive 1/2. Well, that happens first in the first quadrant there at 60 degrees, which is also pi over 3. That also happens down here in the fourth quadrant at 5 pi over 3 or 300 degrees. Okay, what about if they want to know where is sine of the angle equal to negative 1/2? So sine is the y, so I'm looking for a y coordinate of negative 1/2. The first one I see is over here in the third quadrant at 210, 7 pi over 6. And then I also see it in the fourth quadrant at 330 degrees and 11 pi over 6.